So I've basically got my base now, but I don't think this is quite everything. For one, I really like to magnetize my bases. Okay, so here's what you need to magnetize any of your 6mm infantry bases. You're going to need a scalpel and a cutting mat. You'll need magnetic sheets, a base with your 6mm miniatures on it, plus a spare base that you haven't actually used to put miniatures on yet. And you'll also need some super glue. The great thing about 6mm infantry is that you can magnetize them very cheaply. Just buy some adhesive magnetic sheets like this thing. You can find them pretty easily online by searching for magnetic sheets. They're usually used for making your own fridge magnets or something like that, so you can tell they're not going to be too powerful. And I actually originally got this for 28mm miniatures, and it wasn't good. But for 6mm, it works great. They're so light, and the infantry base, it's about the same surface area as a 28mm base, so it's got the same amount of lift for way less figures. So what you do is you get a base that doesn't have any minis on it yet and pop that base down on the sheet. Now just draw around the base with your knife, like I'm doing here. Now I could make a batch of these by measuring lines out across the sheet. However, I like to make sure that each base gets a good fit by cutting out a corner at a time, just in case my line drawing isn't accurate, or because unlike in the situation with the DVD case, if my hand slips, then I'm probably going to mess up the whole part of the sheet that I'm working on because it's so soft. I don't actually stick the sheet to this base I have here. It's just my sample base, or whatever you call it. I use it to cut out the shape, and now I switch over to a base with minis on it. I do it this way because trying to cut out a shape using a base with 6mm miniatures on it could easily end up in disaster if you accidentally press too hard on the minis, which I learned, unfortunately. I recommend once you've cut through the sheet, you can just peel off the adhesive sheet, pop some super glue on the bottom, and press the sheet on. We're not quite done. Take a bird's eye view of the base and look to see if there are any bits of magnetic sheeting sticking out from underneath. Use your scalpel to slice them off. And this is why I recommended earlier that you actually sand the soft side, because this side here, where you put on your magnet base, your magnet strip, you need it to be a tiny bit rough, but you don't need to sand it. You really don't need to sand it. So once you've put it on, you can actually attach it to something like this. So I can pop this on. Obviously, I'll put it inside normally, but I can turn this upside down and shake it, and the miniature stays on, which is fantastic. And that's exactly what I wanted. And I have another one here to go with it. Here's one I made earlier. Hey! And again, it's not coming off, which is great because I'm going to be able to put one or two epic armies into this case here. And yeah, that's my basing tutorial. One thing I noticed about 6mm bases online is that not everyone wants a base with flock or sand. Some people want a flatter surface to represent city streets or something similar. I'll show you how to take this to the next level by fitting something snugly around the bottom of the miniatures so that they don't look like they're all standing on tiny little pedestals. Get a hole puncher and some of that magnetic sheeting. Now you can always use soft plastic card, thin cardboard, or anything with some level of thickness that can still be cut by a hole puncher and hold its shape. Very carefully put the magnetic sheet into the hole puncher. You'll have to look into the hole puncher at an angle to make sure that you're actually placing the card or magnetic sheet correctly and punching it where you want it. You may need to practice a couple of times on a piece of cardboard before you actually do this. So punch your card, and now you've got a place to put your miniature. And the great thing is that you can do this for unusual shaped bases or unusual layouts on your bases, like if you wanted to have only 2 infantry on a command base. You won't have to fill in unnecessary holes like you would have to do with a pre-bought 6mm base. You just put your guy where you want him and you're done. If you like this tutorial, why not share it with your gaming group? Because in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, sharing is caring.